unlock your world one word at a time, because language isn't just about learning, it's about living. Let's get started. Wonderful listeners, welcome to the Languages Pedagogy Podcast. Here we are again, where we unravel the intricate world of language education, one meaningful conversation at a time. Today's episode dives into a topic that isn't just overlooked. It's often hidden in plain sight, sometimes. Accent discrimination in language teaching. A hidden barrier. More than hidden, I think it's pretty obvious, right? Accent discrimination isn't just about preference. It's about bias, perception, and systemic barriers that affect hiring practices, student attitudes, teacher confidence, and ultimately, the quality of language education itself. We've all heard comments like, "You don't sound like a native speaker. I prefer a teacher with an American or British accent. Your accent makes it hard to understand you." But what do these comments actually mean? Are they reflection of linguistic realities, or are they rooted in bias and stereotypes? In today's extensive discussion, we're going to unpack what accent discrimination really is and how it manifests in the classroom, hiring decisions, and social dynamics. Why accents carry so much weight in language learning perceptions. The psychological toll of accent discrimination on teachers and learners. Real-life stories from educators and students who have faced these biases. The impact on professional opportunities for non-native teachers. Let's say non-native passport holder teachers. Strategies for teachers, learners, and institutions to combat accent bias and create more inclusive learning environment. This episode isn't just a conversation, it's a call to action. It's about dismantling biases that have persisted for far too long and empowering teachers and learners to recognize the richness that different accents bring to the language learning experience. So, grab your favorite drink, settle into your coziest chair, and let's start this important conversation.
Audio Jungle.
Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. What exactly is accent discrimination? At its core, accent discrimination refers to bias or prejudice against someone based on the way they speak. It happens when judgments are made about a person's intelligence, credibility, or suitability for a job based purely on their accent. But here's where it gets complicated. Everyone has an accent. Yes, everyone. There's no such a thing as a neutral accent. What we often call a neutral or standard accent is simply the accent of a dominant social or economic group in a given region. For example, in the United States, a standard accent often refers to a general American accent. Just that. In the UK, it's received pronunciation, or the so-called Queen's English. In Australia, it's the general Australian accent. But accents are not just regional. They're social and cultural. They carry baggage. They tell stories about where you come from, your socioeconomic background, and even how society values your voice. In the world of language teaching, these biases become particularly pronounced. Many language schools still explicitly or implicitly favor teachers with specific accents, usually British, American, Canadian, or Australian. But why does this happen? Why do accents carry so much weight in language education? First, There's the myth of the perfect accent. Many learners are led to believe that speaking with a native accent should be the ultimate goal. But what does native accent even mean? An English speaker from New York sounds different from someone in Manchester or Sydney. Yet learners are often sold the idea of a monolithic, flawless accent that doesn't actually exist. Second, accents are tied to perceived authority and credibility. When someone speaks with an accent associated with a power or prestige, they're more likely to be viewed as knowledgeable and professional. Conversely, accents associated with marginalized groups are often unfairly linked to incompetence or lower intelligence. Third, there's the fluency fallacy. Many people wrongly assume that an accent is a marker of language proficiency, but fluency and accent are two completely separate things. You can be incredibly fluent in English and still have a noticeable accent, and that's perfectly okay. Now, let's talk about how accent discrimination affects hiring decisions. Many job advertisements in language schools explicitly ask for teachers with a neutral accent, or even specify accents from certain countries. But what these requirements often overlook is that teaching is about communication, methodology, and empathy, not about sounding like a Hollywood actor. Really. When schools prioritize accent over teaching ability, they missed out on talented, qualified educators who could bring immense value to their students. This is so true. This is something that I've actually experienced a lot in Asia specifically. They all actually advertise this type of job offers, like asking for native speakers just from the US or from Canada or from Australia specifically. But what about the other teachers who are really wonderful in methodology, that they have a really good communication skill and really good empathy? What's going to happen with them? But the damage doesn't stop at hiring practices now. Accent discrimination also affects student perceptions. Imagine you are a learner in an English class. Your teacher speaks with a noticeable Polish accent. If you've been conditioned to believe that only American or British accents are correct, you might doubt your teacher's competence, even if they are highly skilled. These perceptions don't just hurt teachers, they hurt students. They reinforce the idea that language is about imitation rather than communication. And what about the teachers themselves? Accent discrimination takes a huge psychological toll. Many non-native teachers, let's say non-native passport holder teachers, report feeling insecure about their accent, even when they're fully qualified and highly experienced. Some overcompensate by avoiding speaking freely in class, while others experience imposter syndrome, a persistent feeling of not being good enough. One teacher I spoke to, Maria from Brazil, shared her experience here. She teaches English and has a CELTA certification, but she's often asked by students, "Why don't you sound more American?" Despite her expertise, these comments have made her question her value as a teacher. But Maria's story isn't unique. Teachers from all over the world face similar challenges, and the emotional toll is significant. So, what can we do about this? How do we dismantle these biases? For teachers, the first step is to embrace your accent. Your accent tells a story, and it's part of who you are. Instead of trying to hide it, own it. Use it as a teaching tool to show your students that accents are normal and natural. For learners, challenge your perceptions. Ask yourself, Why do I think one accent is better than another? Is it because of real communication barriers? Or is it because of societal conditioning? For institutions, it's time to update hiring policies. Schools should prioritize qualifications, teaching skills, and passion over arbitrary accent requirements. And finally, as a global community, we need to change the narrative. Language is about connection, not imitation. It's about expressing yourself clearly, not perfectly. And as we come to the close of this deeply reflective conversation, I want to leave you with one thought. Every voice matters. Every accent tells a story. And every teacher, regardless of their accent, has something valuable to offer. And wait up a moment. Before we're heading to the final part of this episode, I just want to remind you that new episodes drop every Monday and Friday. So make sure to tune in weekly for your dose of thought-provoking conversation. You can find our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can also pay a visit to our website, MikeEnglishOnline.com. As I always tell you, there's tons of resources there for your daily learning or teaching. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and follow us for more. And thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode has sparked reflection, challenged assumptions, and inspired change. Let's continue to build a classroom where every voice is heard, respected, and celebrated. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, it's not about how you sound, it's about what you say.